We're going to have a very, very lightweight conversation about text analytics. The chapter that goes with this is the Beautiful Data Visualizations book. It's a really good book just to look at in general, but we didn't have you reading it throughout, mostly because it's not free, and so that was one of the things that I wanted to make sure that you have. It's not like an open license where everybody can check it out at the same time at the library either. And adding this to the mix on top of everything else, and it didn't cover what I wanted it to cover, would have been a little too much. But if you're interested, that is one of those very common books that pretty much everyone who does data visualization has looked at before. Okay, so they have a chapter on Wordle, which is word clouds. Most of you have probably seen these before in some shape or form. It is kind of the gateway to text analytics. It is very, very easy to do. Anyone can do it. You don't have to download anything. It's so commonly used now that some people like it's one of those love-hate things. Either you like them or you hate them, because they get a little overused. But it is kind of our intro path into it that's accessible to you guys without learning a whole new thing. I believe the data mining class might be covering text analytics a little bit more now. So doing other types of analysis with that, or there's a new class coming up, one or the other. So word clouds or word collages basically show the frequency of words by weight, right? So if you're looking at the example on the left with the word signature, you can see that Lang, programming, Java, IBM, those are things that were more important in their resume or whatever they took it from. And you can obviously, take text that's existing, or you can create one of these and create things that are more weighted if you're doing something intentional like that in order to create some effect. You can use them as an analytics tool, but also as art, or both. So you can see on the right side here that you have Darth Vader, and you've got this really cool art piece that's done by filling in with the words there. This is, and you can see the words are repeated over and over. This is an art piece, not a general Wordle type thing. So yeah, take that as it is. But that idea can be used by artists more deliberately than just a generated program like Wordle does. Okay, so the data prep for something like Wordle is the same as data prep for other text analytics. So as our baby intro, this is not a bad way to start thinking about these. And so if you're working with someone who's doing text analytics, you're kind of familiar with some of the things that they're doing. Say that you have a book that you are doing a word cloud from. Every word in that book is, first of all, considered separately. Okay. Some programs and some coding can group the words together. Wordle specifically uses the little tilde to connect words together instead of a space. That way you can have phrases. The text analytics that I did in R was a very complex thing where they grouped words together, and like you had to tell it like group 2 words together, group 3 words together, and did some crazy math stuff in the background to try to figure it out. Ends up very kind of messy. What this is telling you to do right here using the little tilde is a very manual method of saying these two words need to go together, and then you look through all the word pairs like that and make sure that they are tilted. Stop words is something that you'll hear a lot in text analytics. So that's all the filler words like and, the, is, a, and, to. If you have natural language, like a true transcript of me talking, you'd also have all the ums, us, all those things. And those would also be in the stop word list. Those are basically taken out of the frequencies because there's so many times that we use words like of, the, and, etc. That way you're only catching the meaningful words. Programs like Wordle have automatic programs that are designed to take them out, but they need to know what language the text is in, and it usually can only handle one language at a time. Some advanced programming can handle multiple languages, but you might have to tell it, hey, this text is in English and it has French words in it also. And then you can, then it'll look for both of those. But you can imagine if it's looking for the filler words for 2 or more languages, it can get messy. It might mistakenly take words out or something like that that should be there, depending on what languages you have going on. So these two data prep pieces are, like I said, they're used basically in any type of text analytics. The first one is really the more difficult one to handle. Okay. What do we use word clouds for? So you can use it to get a greater understanding of a text. If you just look at the blue part by itself, you can see that Harry Truman's speech was talking about nations and the world, very big picture type of speech here. Countries, belief, you see the word communism highlighted there. It was the 40s. Security, programs. So for very large amounts of text, this can help highlight what kind of words are used because it's frequency based. So you can kind of get a better feel of what is like the key message. Obviously, this also takes a lot of processing on the viewer's end of like, what do these words have in common? And sometimes it's not that helpful. So if you are, for example, trying to look at customer feedback or like an employee comments form for their like their employee engagement survey or something like that, text analytics, you're not going to get as meaningful data back out of these as you might hope. It's not going to give you the same level of understanding as if you actually read the comments, but it's a nice just kind of snapshot view, and sometimes a good accompaniment to explaining what the actual text read is because you actually read the text. It can also be used to compare two different speeches against each other. So the full example here, I was talking about how the ones in red on the right were absent from this speech, showing a difference in the type of language that is being used by other people of that time and level compared to him. So, you know, you don't like hear the thing about like power and a little bit more focus on like America, Americans. Here he's a lot more international, talking about freedom and peace and nations and trying to recover the world, you know, after the war and all that kind of stuff. So that comparative thing can sometimes be a really useful tool. Oh, okay, and I'm gonna pause PowerPoint really quickly to point out how easy these are. So if you go to any thing like this, you can put in word cloud or Google or whatever like that. You can click on any of these. So this, you know, if you haven't played with this before, all you have to do is like do word list. Let's see. This has an automatic one in here. There we go. New word cloud. There we go. Now you can put a word list. So let's pause for 1 second here. Okay, and all of these little ones are a little bit different from each other. So in this case, it wants you to add each word separately and do a manual weight on that. This would be great if you're trying to do a little tag thing for your email address or something like that, like it showed a couple of slides ago. If you wanted to grab, copy and paste a thing, for example, I grabbed the chapter 17. Let's see what I'll do with that. I've not actually looked and seen what this will do ahead of time. No cheating, live demos. And it's filling it in, it's thinking about life. You can see that's doing some sort of shaped thing and it's super duper big. Scroll down a little bit here. Okay, so these words are not drawn because of the frequencies usually. And then you can start messing around with these. Like that kind of font is super hard to read, and so you can grab something that's going to be a little bit easier on the eyes to understand. You can go for a regular rectangle. You can do specific colors. You can do, I want to go from purple to red. No, let's do that. We do that. See what that looks like. Things. There we go. Okay, chapter 17. We were talking about, let's see, that was the chapter on the principle of proportional ink. We've got talking about figures and bars and scales. Countries was used heavily in the examples. Data, proportional, price, that was another example that was used heavily in their sources, data, bars. That seems pretty accurate, right? So that could be a little wordle that both tells us a little bit about what we were looking at, what we were reading in that chapter, as well as just a cool little visual if you wanted to add it to your PowerPoint or whatever like that, which is how I end up usually using these. It's a little bit more art than anything else. Okay, so that is word clouds. Are they taken seriously as text analytics? Depends. Not super seriously, but as we said, it's a beginner. It's a beginner one. It's a gateway. Another one that you'll see commonly in businesses is sentiment analysis. This one is taken a little bit more seriously. This is where it is taking the actual text. It's looking for words that are like adjectives and things that generally reflect either emotions or positive or negative affect. So on the left side, you can see that's a very simple one. It's, you know, is it like positive or is it negative or is it neutral? That's basically how it's grouping it. On the right side, it's got a more complex one where it's looking at the 6 basic emotions there. These can be very useful. These are often used, especially in shorter text amounts. So word cloud isn't going to work so well if you only have a paragraph but this does work very well for a paragraph or even a tweet, very, very short amounts. How accurate are these? From my experience with them, not really. Not if you are doing things rather quickly and not using very, very, very specialized libraries. So what you get with these is the types of words that are used in something like a newspaper is going to be very different than what your employee engagement survey type language will be. And so the libraries that you use for determining emotions or even just positive or negatives needs to be tailored to the actual context. And that's where the developments of text analytics are still in the developmental phase, is as we're developing these libraries and fine-tuning them over time. So we're getting better. We're getting better and better at this, but we're really not, we're not perfect at all. And so if you use a very generic library that is doing this, which is what you would see with something like SurveyMonkey, where they're starting to offer these type of analyses, you're not going to get a lot out of it. So just be aware of that, especially for an organization where they go, hey, you want to introduce this new tool. Just know those caveats in your mind, even if you don't get into text analytics yourself. They're not super accurate yet. Okay, so that's all I want to say about text analytics in terms of data visualization. Everything else that we generally do with text analytics actually uses regular charts and stuff, because what we're doing is, looking at the most frequent words and using bar graphs or column or something like that. So we're using our regular data viz tools to show text analytic results, basically. So these are the only things that are kind of very different, that are unique for text analytics that you'll see very commonly. Okay, so what is the homework out of this? Am I going to make you do a Wordle? No. No homework this week. Just work on your projects. Take the extra time, because I know. And well, technically your paper is due, so, but no homework associated with the text analytics stuff or any of the lecture content from this week. What are we doing this class? We have our last single teach back on chapter 22. I am not going to do text analytic discussion breakdown stuff, so we won't have that either. We'll have a short review of concepts that is focused on the principles of design part of the lecture, just because that is more applicable to your actual projects and what you're actually doing with like Tableau. And we'll do a quiz, and that's it. So I expect a very short class, so give you some time back to work on everything you need to work on. So hopefully that'll be helpful for you as we're wrapping up this quarter. All right.